Hello and welcome back to Ollie Talks Airsoft. In today's video we are looking at my entire Airsoft collection. 25 years worth of playing Airsoft and collecting all of the replicas and the toys that come along with it. None of these are real guns, these are all Airsoft toys, and I just want to say to everyone that's helped me to get to 5,000 subscribers, an absolutely massive thank you. No more dithering, let's get on with it. Let's start looking at these Airsoft toys. First up, let's have a look at this. This is a Colt Python Snake Eyes, part of a set of two. Sadly, I've only got this one, which is the nickel one. It looks absolutely beautiful. The dice on this side, and on the other side it's got a set of playing cards. Like all Tanaka pistols, the gas goes in the cylinder, and oh, this thing is an absolute joy to shoot. The trigger on this is, ooh. This is a WE Cybergun Desert Eagle. Yeah, I played a little bit too much kind of Max Payne and was too influenced by the Matrix. Agent Smith had one of these. I was like, it's too cool, especially when they also come with CO2 mags, and the CO2 mags are crazy for this thing. Quite nice engravings on it as well. Yeah, this was a great addition to my collection a few years ago. I was always waiting for a full metal Desert Eagle to come out that could take CO2. Thank you, WE Cybergun. Next up, we've got a Beretta Elite Brigadier. This one is actually made by Western Arms, so it's an absolutely terrible shooter, but it's all in the looks with this thing. I just think it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm glad to have it in my collection, and if you want to see more, there's a card up there where I did a video about this. Next up, Tokyo Marui FNX Tactical. So this is plastic fantastic at its absolute best out of Japan. We've got the Tokyo Marui RMR and the Tokyo Marui 16mm suppressor on there. Some really kind of nice engravings. Really like that two-tone. If you're into that 50 Shades of FDE, brilliant. And this thing, like big chunky mags, loads of gas, like a rail on the bottom. This is a really cool tactical pistol. Absolutely love this thing. Speaking of, we've got this is actually an A+ custom, which is an ASG CZ75 Shadow SP01, and it's also got a G&G suppressor on it. Really cool, like quite flat shooting actually. Weird how the slide is kind of very much within the frame. Yeah, quite a cool gun, and the A+ version basically has a bit of a trigger job done to it, so it just makes it a little bit nicer to shoot. But this thing will run CO2 and it will run with the suppressor on it as well. Got some really nice fibre optic sights on there. I really like the fibre optic front and the blacked out rear, so for me this is a great little combo. Yeah, I like this. Next up, back to Tokyo Marui and Plastic Fantastic again. This is the first Glock that they ever brought to market, and this thing came out a long time ago. This is the Glock 26. Now, it may not seem like it, but this thing has range, it has accuracy, and it still packs a punch. You can still hop some slightly heavier BBs. It's so small. Really good for anyone that wants to do like milsim, and the fact that you can put in even the extended like 50 round mags, that's so cool. TM still smashing it out of the park. This is such a cool gun, but it's old school and you don't see enough of them anymore. Now looking at something slightly different, but also pretty similar. This is a Glock 19 with a Guns Modify slide. Again, I've gone with the fibre optic front and the blacked out rear, and I've got a flared magwell on here. This has also got a Garda polymer lower, and the polymer lowers are actually really nice on these things, and no trouble with fitment. This thing shoots like an absolute dream even in the winter. Big proponent of doing a couple of little upgrades to your Glock. This thing, whew, beautiful. Now let's take a look at something from Army Armament. This is basically a Wilson Combat service grade. The markings and everything on this are really pretty good for something that's actually very kind of budget friendly. So I thought this was really cool. I was slightly disappointed that these aren't actual holes, but I'm considering kind of drilling them. Might as well, it's kind of cool. Again, like takes quite a slim mag, so it doesn't hold a lot of gas, but the recoil on this, yeah, it's really decent. A little bit rattly though. This thing needs probably no introduction, an AAP01. So this was one of the first batch that came out. When they first came out, they were super cheap, and I managed to get hold of one. And you know what, the fact that it can take Glock mags, the fact that it can shoot full auto, yeah, it's kind of cool. I put on one of these little suppressors, and it's got a little bit of foam in, so it actually does change the sound and it does make it a bit more dull. Yeah, I really like this. It's kind of a hidden gem. It just doesn't feel as like quality as maybe some of the other things I have. Now let's go super small with the Tokyo Marui non-blowback LCP. Now this thing is small enough to fit in your sock, and the fact that it's non-blowback means that you can kind of hold it however you want when you end up pulling the trigger. It's got like 10 round mags. I've got a couple of them, but Tokyo Marui also do a little holster for this, and they do extended mags. So you'll have seen people like Kicking Mustang using these with like suppressors attached to them. This gun is quiet and it's accurate still out to like 30 meters. So a big thumbs up from me. I've had it for a couple of years, run it on green gas, super cool. Now let's have a look at something really old. So this is a Tanaka M10, but it's actually got real World War I grips on. And that's one of the cool things about Tanakas. The fact that they don't take any of their gas in the grip, it all stays in the cylinder. So it means that you can put real grips on. Isn't that cool? Took a lot of effort to get them looking as nice as they do. And actually, for a heavyweight, I think that this is a really nice example. And again, the trigger and the action and everything on this is a real joy to shoot. So I have very high praise for some of the Japanese manufacturers like Tanaka. So yeah, big thumbs up. If you can get your hands on something like this, I definitely say try and do it. Next up, we've got a Tokyo Marui Glock 34, but there isn't that much Tokyo Marui left in it. This one I actually put in a Volanti blowback housing, and I put a Garda steel slide, and this thing runs on CO2, so this thing kicks like an absolute mule. It actually weighs even more than a real steel Glock 34, which is pretty unbelievable. Yeah, this gun is a lot of fun to shoot. Sometimes it does chrono a bit hot in the summer, so it's more one for the winter when you kind of need to be on CO2 sometimes. But oh yeah, this one's super fun. I absolutely love it. Now we've got one of my only VFC guns. So this is a Walther PPQ, which I just thought, I really like the P99, and this was really similar. I saw one coming in at a relatively cheap price, put a kind of laser on it as well. I thought it was kind of cool. This also has it's the M2, so it's got the full auto feature on it, which whenever I shoot it on semi, it always slips over into full auto. So it's not really the kind of thing that I can take out into game, because I don't want to be shooting people full auto. But the recoil and the snap on this, yeah, really nice. I was super surprised. This is a fun gun to shoot. Now let's look at my first Western Arms pistol that I ever bought, and this thing is still going strong. This is a Wilson Combat Classic High Capper. It's all made of plastic, except for like the mag is probably about the same weight as the toy itself. It's got a cool like Wilson's logo on the barrel, and you can see from many years ago, because the mag wobbles so much, that I put tape in, the mag still wobbles. This thing was actually quite an accurate gun, but only because it had no hop up. So that's the best thing to do with some of these old Western Arms pistols. Just remove the hop completely, cancel it. It's terrible, but it was so much fun to shoot. This was one of the reasons I think that I got into gas blowback so much. Next up, we've got a plastic fantastic again, a Tokyo Marui M9A1, US A1. So this is the one with the rail on the front basically. I wanted to get the one with the rail so I could attach something like an X300, and one of the holster systems that I use actually grabs onto an X300. So if you've got something like this, then always look for the pistols with the rails. I've got the extended mag on it, of course, and a couple of extra mags. Like, this thing shoots great all the time. It may be one of Tokyo Marui's older designs, but it's still great. The hop up in it is still fantastic. The markings on it are pretty good. It would be nice to see a revision. It'd be nice to see like an A3 coming out from TM. But for the time being, this thing is pretty damn cool. Sticking on Berettas, this is one of the only sets of guns where I have a matching pair, and these are Western Arms Perfect Version Berettas. So they're still plastic, but they're made with kind of metal powder within the plastic. Again, this was too much max pain and it came out about the same time as the Matrix, so I thought having a pair of Berettas would be super cool. Unfortunately, the hop up in them is absolutely terrible, but they are so much fun when they're working. Let's round out my Berettas with a Tokyo Marui PX4. I actually got this secondhand pretty recently. The thing about buying a secondhand Tokyo Marui pistol is there's pretty much nothing that you won't be able to quickly fix yourself. So if you ever see them out there for a bargain, then you may as well snap them up if you want to add something to your collection. I particularly thought that the rotating barrel was just such a cool feature that I saw this for super cheap and decided to pick it up. The markings on it, again, pretty good, but it shoots just like a TM, and that's kind of all you want. It's designed for airsoft, so yeah, well done TM, and thanks to the guy that sold this to me for nice and cheap. Here we have got another CZ pistol, so we've got the CZ-P09 or the CZ-P09. This is made by ASG. It's got the rails on the front, it takes CO2 mags, which I kind of would recommend for this. When you run it on green gas, it can be a little bit lackluster. So definitely one for the CO2 mags. I don't particularly like the trigger or anything on this, but it did win Player's Choice Award quite a few times, and I think the reason for that is that it comes in at such a reasonable price. I can understand why people like a nice cheap pistol. It's not the sort of thing you're using as much as like an AEG, so yeah, why not go a little bit cheaper? But you know what, it's okay, it works. The next pistol is the Para Ordnance. This is another P14 45, but it's got the original plastic slide, and this was a bit of a barn find for me. If you want to see the video all about me finding this, click the card up there. Again, what a lovely piece of work from Western Arms. I wish that some other companies would start coming out with some Para Ordnances. I just think they're really good looking. This thing is a Tokyo Marui 4.3 high capper, and it's got a Garda metal slide on it, and it's had a few other little things done to it, and it's got a Volanti blowback unit inside it to give it a little bit more kick and a little bit more realism, because there's kind of no marks on the slide. So it's designed to be like a bit of a sleeper gun, but just really, really fun to take out and shoot. The fact that it's a 4.3 means that you can fit 4.3 and 5.1 mags in it. That's why I kind of prefer the 4.3s, and they only have a safety on one side. So yeah, big fan of the 4.3. I almost regret upgrading this because it's just so good stock. So I may switch back to the plastic slide in future. Now we've got a Tokyo Marui HK45. You'll see, along with quite a lot of my other pistols, it's got the rail on the front so that I can use it with the universal holster. This thing, the markings on it and the serrations, pretty good. Again, it shoots like a TM. This one has got the slightly bigger blowback unit in it. Again, so like nice fat mag, you can hold plenty of gas in there. It does have the HK paddle for removing the mag. This thing's pretty lefty friendly because you've actually got a slide release on both sides, but you've only got the safety and the decocker on one side. But you know what? It's a double action anyway, so this thing's pretty cool. I'd recommend this to quite a lot of people. Like, it's either like between this and the FNX 45 if you're kind of looking for a 45 pistol. This thing, even though my hands aren't massive, really, really comfortable. Those finger grooves, I find this an absolute joy to shoot. This one is the Tokyo Marui M&P9L Performance Center. So again, you can see the markings on this are actually pretty decent. You've got some cool porting in the slide and in the barrel as well. So that's cool. It's got some ambi controls, like an ambi slide release and things. So that's again cool. It makes it easy for you to operate if you're a lefty. It's also got an optics mount on the front, and it's got a rail. So this kind of does everything that you want it to do. And with those raised sights, you know, that's kind of nice. You've got dots on the sights as well. I kind of like this pistol. Again, you've got really fat mags, so plenty of gas to be held in there. Again, a massive thumbs up from me. I really like the M&P9L. Now, something I don't like quite as much. This is my Dan Wesson. This takes shells and it takes CO2 in the grip. I think even when I got it, it had a little bit of wobble and a bit of play in it. So I wasn't the biggest fan of this right from the get-go. It shoots like 450 FPS, so it's kind of a bit too powerful to use in game as well, certainly here in the UK. So unfortunately, I bought it to, you know, use out on the field and never really had the chance to do that. So This one's always been a little bit of a disappointment for me, so let's move on to the next one. So next up we have the first Glock that I ever bought. This is a KSC Glock 19, and I actually ported the slide myself because I dropped it, broke the barrel, so I had to buy a shorter barrel that had some cool kidney beam porting in it. And I decided, well, you've got to be able to see that porting. So some of the first modding that I ever did there about 20 years ago, it does actually still work. It's just not very good anymore. But pair it up with a cool Surefire replica, then yeah, it's kind of good to go. This was this was my first Glock ever, so probably got quite a lot to answer for there. Thanks KSC. Now let's swing back round again to Western Arms. Now, this was originally I picked this up super cheap because it was a broken 3.9, and I just happened to have a full length slide unused for a Western Arms, and so managed to basically bring this thing back from the dead and turn it into a full length Infinity. So I'm going to make a video all about this, so keep an eye out for that. Pretty cool. Okay, GoPro overheated there, but we shall continue on. This is a Tokyo Marui P226E2 with the Garda full metal kit on it and a threaded barrel. I think this looks great in the two-tone, and if you think that the TM grips are a bit plasticky, then a really good upgrade is getting these Garda ones, which are a bit more polymer. But really nice engravings on this. Yeah, really cool. Happy to have it in the collection. Only really works in the summer though. Needs a bit of heat to work. Next up we have a Western Arms Para-Ordnance P1445 with a shooter's design metal slide on it. So kind of rare, kind of cool, kind of bling. Yeah, you don't see too many of these around. I bought this second hand off a friend, and yeah, I'm really glad to have this in the collection. Super fun to shoot, but you've got to use low power gas. But even so, the kick on this is great. Now we have the Tokyo Marui USP full size. Now I decided to put a 45 match compensator on this just because I thought it looked really cool with like the HK logos. I guess I don't have the full length barrel in there, so you could call this a project still ongoing, but this thing is an absolute joy to shoot. It's got the bigger blowback housing in here, and being plastic, it's so snappy and works all year round, so I can't recommend the USPs enough. Next up we've got another gun that I bought secondhand. So this was an Infinity, and I just thought this Western Arms thing looked so cool. Yeah, with the gold barrel and this kind of aggressive front end, I just really like the look of it, and so it was going for a good price, so I thought I would pick this up and add to the collection. Doesn't get to go out much, it's got a bit of a loose front sight, so a couple of little things that I need to sort out, but really really cool. Next up we have a 1911 A1, and this actually started life as a Tokyo Marui Series 70, and then I put a Garda kit on it, and I found some really cool grips when I was in Hong Kong, so I added those to it, and I think this thing looks absolutely awesome in the grey, and the Springfield Armory logos look, yeah, absolutely on point. I really like this thing. Again, it's a shame that it has such small thin mag, so it doesn't hold a lot of gas, but shoots like an absolute dream, so love this thing. Next up we have the Tanaka model M66. This was the first Tanaka pistol or revolver that I ever bought, so it kind of has a lot to answer for because I bought a few after this. The action on this is super smooth, like the brushed steel effect, even though this is all made of plastic, just an absolute joy. And if I do find some M66 grips, I'd be tempted to swap them out. Instead of these plastic ones, get some real steel grips on here. That would be really cool. So we're down to the last three pistols, and I definitely saved the best till last. So first up we have a Tanaka single action army in a Jupiter finish. So this is, again, it's made of plastic because it's a Tanaka, it's a Japanese gun, but oh my goodness, this thing, it's super heavy, it's cold to the touch, and this is an absolute dream. Like, I was so happy when I managed to pick one of these up. The Jupiter finish guns tend to be pretty rare, and yeah, this was one that I was really happy to add to my collection. Next up, probably my most used pistol at the moment. This is my kind of Gucci Glock build. It consists of a Garda lower, a real Surefire X300B on the front here, replica SRO sight on the top, and this is a Ready Fighter low-key tactical Neo slide in a grey finish, and it looks the absolute business. This thing shoots great. The sight, the SRO sight, is cheap. It's not really that good, but you know what? It'll do. This thing is so much fun to shoot. At the moment I've got weak springs in there, but you can upgrade them and it'll still shoot absolutely fine. This thing's a workhorse based on a TM system. Absolutely love it. Last but certainly not least, we have a Tokyo Marui 5.1 DVC Tactical. This is a Gunsmith Bros kit, and it's also got the STI logos on the lower as well. And I went for the steel copper finish hairline barrel. This thing is a lot of fun to shoot. Doesn't have a dropping barrel, so works great with any sort of suppressors and tracers. Yeah, if you're looking for a kind of Gucci upgraded airsoft gun, these Gunsmith Bros kits are just absolute butter smooth. So super nice. Yeah, I was really pleased to get this. This was a lockdown purchase. Okay, what say we kick it up a notch and take a look at some subguns. So, this is my only electric subgun, and this was a Tokyo Marui MP5 A4. And you know what? This thing is amazing. It only shoots at like 250 FPS, but back in the day, you could take one of those massive batteries in it, and the rate of fire on this was unbelievable. Thanks to my friend Dan for getting me the cool Walther dot sight. It marries up perfectly because my front sight has actually been shot out. This thing is still going to this day, really cool, and that selector, really positive. Excellent for Tokyo Marui. Here we have a Mach 11. This is a KSC Mach 11, and this is pretty much what started my love of gas blowback subguns. Now, this thing's got like an extendable stock, and like the rate of fire on this thing is insane. I picked up the suppressor, which has got foam in, like pretty quickly after getting the actual replica itself, and then it took me maybe another 20 years to find one of these cool cloth front handles. This thing is an absolute laser beam. I love it. The markings on it, again, not great. You can see this thing has absolutely been used and abused, and it's been through the wars, but it's still going to this day, and this thing is just a powerhouse. Everyone needs a Mach 11. In fact, I ended up getting a second Mach 11, and I've got a third one that's kind of in bits for parts as well. I also ended up getting a T77, which is basically the same internals as a Mach 11, but in a much heftier metal body. So this thing's pretty cool as well, but I kind of prefer the small, light, slim style of the Mach 11, and yeah, these things are absolute dynamite. Next up, FPG. I'm sure plenty of people are going to recognize one of these. This is really cool. Again, this is a kit for a Glock 18, but we've got the extended barrel on the inside. We've obviously got the extended mag on there. It's got some pretty cool branding, and it's got the Magpul logo on the grip. This thing is really cool and just a fun thing to have in the collection. Next up, Scorpion gas blowback. This is the KSC version. Takes these little mags. I've got some extended ones as well. This thing is so loud and so much fun to shoot. It's also absolutely tiny, really easy to get behind. If you're looking for something for CQB that's a little bit different, then this may be what you're looking for. It's a lot of fun, and you can even put real steel grips on it, which I think is super cool. I really want to get some wooden grips and chuck them on here. I think that would look great. Next up, the Maruzen Micro Uzi. And this is actually the first airsoft gun I ever owned before every single other one. This is numero uno, and it still works to this day, despite the fact that I got it when I think I was 12 or 13 years old. Actually a little bit probably too young to have it, but oh my goodness, this thing is an absolute joy to shoot. If you see one of them out there, definitely pick one up. I have a lot of love for the Maruzen Micro Uzi. This thing's great. Next up, we've got ASG's version of the MP9, and as you can see, I've chucked a Mad Bull Airsoft launcher with a Moss cart on the front there. We've got the suppressor, we've got the folding stock, and we've got a Vortex Spark AR on the top and the extended mags. This is the fixed foregrip version. You know what? This thing's actually really cool. It's really loud, even with the suppressor, even though it's got some foam in it. You know what really sets it apart? The markings. It's got all the right markings in all the right places, and this thing is a joy to shoot. Maybe not with the grenade launcher, it kind of makes it a little bit front heavy, but as you can see, it looks like an absolute CQB monster. Next up, WE MP5A5 gas blowback. This thing is a lot of fun to shoot. It's got the extendable stock. You've got different sort of 30 to 45 round mags on it. This one, I managed to modify a G&P flashlight foregrip to work on it, but this thing is so much fun to shoot. Again, it's really loud, it's really dominating. Like, I cannot recommend these WE MP5s enough. The 3-round burst feature on here is also really cool, but it does wear out after a bit of time, but you can get replacement parts, so it's never too much of a problem. But if you've wanted to ever add a cool MP5 to your collection, this is probably my favourite out of all my MP5s. I do also have an MP5K. This is the Maruzen version, and this is all made of plastic, but the rate of fire on this thing is absolutely insane. Great as a sniper backup, especially with the 50-round mags. This thing is hella fun to shoot. Next up with the subguns, we've got the MP2A1. Most people would know this as the Uzi. This is a full steel version, the first full steel version by Northeast. I really love this thing. It weighs an absolute ton. It is really fun to shoot, especially when you get the correct nozzles and you get it down to the UK FPS limits. This is a fun replica. So I really like this. If you want to relive those Cold War era subgun days, then this thing is definitely worth picking up. And I think they're now doing a version with a steel bolt, which is probably going to be even more fun to shoot. Last of the subguns, but certainly not least, we've got a Tokomori MP7A1. So this one has got a real EOTech on the top of it. It's also got a QD MP7 can, and I've got a Surefire with a filter on the front here. It's got the extended stock, and with these Tokomori MP7s, I definitely recommend getting one of these sling mounts for the back here. It actually holds everything up much better and stops your frame from cracking. This thing with a fold down foregrip, again, this is a CQB beast. Loads of people swear by these. They do have their issues, but they are so much fun to shoot. These hold their own in CQB and out in the field. An absolute monster once again. Okay, next up, let's have a look at some shotguns. First up, we have the shotgun that kind of started the tri-shot craze. This is Tokomori's M3 Shorty. Now, this thing has been through the absolute wars. As you can see, it's missing the fake charging handle, it's missing the bits at the bottom, but it's the tri-shot version, and this thing still works an absolute treat to this day, despite being, as you can see, very much used and abused and not treated particularly nicely. I have a lot of love for this thing, and this has got me a lot of kills. So to anyone that doesn't have a tri-shot, I thoroughly recommend picking one of these up. And in fact, it's one of those cheapest airsoft guns that you can get, but it's the most fun to play with. Now, stepping it up in size and performance, we've got the Tokomori M870 Tactical. So this is a gas-powered tri-shot. So this one, I do actually still have the gate on the bottom, and as you can see, I've got some spare 30-round shells. It's a similar system where it shoots 3 BBs at a time, and you get 30 in the shell, so that's 10 shots before you have to reload. Again, you've got a rail on top of this one, which you didn't have with the others, and this thing is a lot of fun. I think the breacher is probably slightly better, but you know what? I love the 870 Tactical. Sounds amazing. Stepping it up again in terms of realism, I guess. So we've now got the Cam 870 shell ejecting airsoft shotgun. So this one, I actually put a real foregrip on it. I took the butt pad off the back. This is really, really fun to shoot. I also did quite a lot to the bottom here, so you can double load it or quad load it as quickly as possible. A great fun thing to shoot. Bit of a pain to run around picking up your shells everywhere, but there is nothing quite like running into a room with a shell ejecting gas powered shotgun and watching your enemies cower. Last and certainly not least in the shotgun department, we've got the brand new Tokyo Marui Sega 12K. This was the first usable gas blowback semi-automatic shotgun that's actually mag fed. So unlike the old Marus and M11s and stuff like that that were shell ejecting and technically gas blowback, they weren't as usable as this. You've got like 45 BBs, so like 15 shots in a mag. Like all of the other Tokyo Marus, it is still a tri-shot, so you've got 3 inner barrels in there. But this one, actually, instead of you having to pump it, it does it all automatically for you. This thing dominates in CQB. It's a lot of fun to use. Okay, now let's have a look at some of the assault rifles in my collection. So let's start off with this one here. This is a gas blowback. So this is... Looks like the only thing I broke there was my ring light. So let's quickly get this done before I break anything else. Right here, we've got a PTS Mega Arms gas blowback rifle. Now, on top of here, we've got probably the best part of the rifle, which is a Vortex Crossfire red dot. Got a cool Engel laser on the front of here, and we've got a sound hog, because obviously as it is gas blowback, why don't we just make it even louder? Now, this thing was an absolute pain. It almost put me off gas blowback rifles. Luckily, the MWS came along and saved my faith in gas blowback rifles. This thing was a lot of trouble, but you know what? I still have a place in my heart for it. Next up, another gas blowback rifle. This is the Tokyo Marui AKM GBBR. This one's got a full wood kit, so we've got a real wood stock and a real wood forend. This thing was the first gas blowback rifle from Tokyo Marui to come out with a larger cylinder, and this thing is dynamite in the winter. Like, if you want an AK that's going to work in the winter without having to buy lots of CO2 or HPAing it, this thing will do it for you. Great fun to shoot. I've done plenty of reviews on this on my channel. Can't recommend this highly enough. Great fun. Next up, we have one of my AEGs. This is a Crytac CRB, and we've got the Vision King short dot on top there. This thing actually, to be perfectly honest with you, for an AEG is really good. Certainly when I picked this up, which is quite a few years ago now, Crytac were kind of on point with their QC, and this is one of the good ones. I've dropped it, I've used it in plenty of games. This used to be my backup for when I was taking my PTS Mega Arms out. I would always have this with a charged battery just in case that thing failed, which it did on a regular basis. This thing was a bit of a saviour for me. Sticking with AEGs, this is an SR16 Stoner rifle with the Nitro V rail kit. So this is an original Tokyo Marui, and this is again an AEG. A really, really fun gun. One of the reasons I liked it so much is because I could fit a large battery in the stock, and previously I'd had a front wired M4 and I'd had to basically tape a battery to the front. Very ghetto, but it kind of worked. So really cool. This got me through probably about 5 years worth of airsofting. This thing is absolutely amazing and still shoots great to this day. Next up, let's have a look at this. So we've got an SRC G36. This thing is kind of rubbish, to be honest with you. It's kind of a starter AEG. I don't really know why I bought it, other than the fact that I really kind of like the G36 platform. I thought it was really cool. The gas blowback one was kind of out of my price range, so I ended up getting this AEG version. I've sort of regretted it ever since, but it was a great thing to loan out to friends and stuff like that. But pretty cool. No great markings or anything on it, just a functional AEG. Next up, we've got a Tokyo Marui M4A1. Now, I bought this back in 2000, and this was one of the first Tokyo Marine M4 AEGs out on the market. As you can see, it's changed a lot since then. It's got a different body, like rail kit, it's been shortened, different stock. A lot has changed, but I still have a place in my heart for this thing. Unfortunately, the gearbox needs some work, and so it's not actually functioning at the moment, but maybe that's going to change in future. Next up, we've got one of my Tokyo Marine MWS builds. This one has got a folding stock on it, which is pretty cool. So great for transportation, and you can just flick it out when you need to use it. Again, this thing is gas blowback. As you can see on the front, we've got a Magpul bipod, and this is actually a real Geisley rail that I've managed to put on here. This thing, again, it's built as a DMR, so even if you flick it into full auto, still only shoots semi, but really, really fun to shoot. I'm a big fan of the Tokyo Marine MWS platform and the amount of versatility that you get with it. Next up, the first AK that I ever bought. This is an AEG E&L AKM, and as you can see, we've got a £5 note sellotaped to the buttstock here. That's actually an AK-47 serial numbered version. Now, this thing is probably the only airsoft gun that you could throw out of a window, pick it up, and it won't miss a beat. These E&Ls are built like something else. I really love mine. That's why I picked up this original sling for it as well. The finish on here is absolutely amazing, and this thing was consistently sort of shooting just under 350 FPS, like a really good AEG. Definitely recommend the E&Ls, lots of fun. Okay, next up we've got another Tokyo Marine MWS, but this is the F1 build, and this is particularly special to me because I built this from parts. I bought the body, I bought the rail, I bought the trigger box, and basically clicked it all together, and this is what you come out with. The highlight here probably being the cool Trijicon scope that I've got on top. This thing, again, is an absolute beast. I took it to the National Airsoft Festival and it was shooting further than I could see. So big testament to the MWS platform. Super customizable, as you can see. This thing, yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, a slightly lesser known, but we've got the Type 89 gas blowback rifle here by Tokyo Marine. Again, we've got a Vortex optic on here. You'll see that quite a lot of my builds have Vortex optics on. I do think they're really, really good, especially for airsoft. We've got a real Surefire light on the front, and we've got a fake Surefire cam on it. This was the F version, which means that actually you can choose to fold the stock in, and it also came with the short mags, although I don't really recommend using them because they're not quite as good as the long mags. Let's just get an extra 10 rounds in there, why not? And again, with a 3-round burst, one of the only Tokyo Marine guns to have that burst feature. In fact, the only gas blowback to have that burst feature from TM, and boy is it fun to shoot. Next up, we've got the Army G36. This is a gas blowback, and it's actually one of the cheapest gas blowbacks. I did a video all about can cheap be good, and I think the conclusion from it was this thing kind of convinced me that actually, yeah, cheap gas blowbacks can be kind of good. This thing is a lot of fun, it's really cheap, and if you don't mind not having real markings on it, and it all being a little bit sort of squishy and not so much polymer but a bit more sort of plasticky, then maybe you want to pick one of these up. They're really good fun. Kind of moving up to a battle rifle here, but we've got the G3A3 by WE. So again, this is another gas blowback rifle. Absolutely colossal bolt on there. This thing, I think it just looks great in that color scheme with the OD green, and on top, bit of a flex, I've got my 3.5 times Trijicon T11. So really cool, really fun gun to shoot. The recoil on this is probably some of the best that I've felt from any gas blowback rifle, and if you want to again relive those Cold War times, kind of like with the MP2A1, then this is your battle rifle version of that. Really cool, such a fun thing to have in the collection. So now we're down to my workhorses. This is my Tokyo Marine MWS, and this thing has been built out as a Mark 18. So we've got a real EOTech green EXPS 2-0, I believe, on there, and a micro 3 times by Vortex. really cool. We've got the extended charging handle latch on here, BCM stock, BCM buffer tube. These are all real steel. Again, we've got a BCM grip on here. I've got a bunch of different mags, some are better than others. Probably, well, look at my channel if you want to figure out which is the best one. BCM grip and a real Geisley Mark II Mod 1 rail, 9.5 inch. Super rare, absolute rocking horse poop. I'm so happy to have it, and I'm happy to have it on this really absolutely excruciatingly beautiful Airsoft riff. This thing is probably my favourite out of all of my Airsoft guns, or Airsoft toys. It shoots amazing, it feels amazing, it can adapt to any situation, and yeah, I can never probably go back to AEGs, and this is most of the reason why. Next up, we've got the new kid on the block from Tokyo Marine in their AK platform. This is the AKX, again adorned with an XPS this time and a fake Surefire instead of a real one. This thing, again, like the AKM, has that slightly larger cylinder, so it's going to work absolute dynamite in the winter. You've got plenty of rail space on here, which you didn't have with the original AKM when that came out. And you can also, without having to break your grip, actuate the safety. The markings on here, not amazing, but it's all about the performance when it comes to Tokyo Marine, and this thing definitely performs. Okay, so we've almost cleared out here and we're down to the last category, that's sniper rifles. If you've stuck on this long, how about do me a favour, give me a like, let's get on with the final sniper rifles. This thing is super, super cool. This is the Ace 1 Arms kit, which was designed to fit on the KC-02. So again, this is a gas blowback semi-auto sniper rifle with a Vortex 2 to 7 times optic on the top. The fact that this gun can break down and store itself like this, I think that is super cool. When these were available, you could pick what colour stock you wanted. You could also pick the colour of the barrel and if it was straight or twisted fluting. Super cool. I wish there were more of them out there. If you see one, definitely try and pick it up. Next up, we've got a Tokyo Marine L96 AWS, and I've got a suppressor on the front here, and I've got a really quite rare Trijicon multicolored reticle optic on here. This thing hasn't been upgraded at all, so it's still super, super smooth, and there's going to be more about this on the channel to come, but I kind of just love the colour of it, to be honest. I got that OD green vibes. Now let's go to Old Faithful. This VSR has been through a lot with me. I've had this for probably over 20 years. Again, we've got a really cool Trijicon optic on the top that's powered by the sun. Oh, does it get any better than that? This VSR has been upgraded to shoot about 500 FPS, and it is so much fun to shoot. It's also super, super quiet, and I'll probably do a video at some point on how I managed to make it so quiet. Finally, last and certainly not least, this is the only 8mm airsoft gun that I've got. It is a Socom Gear M200 intervention, and this thing is crazy. As you can see, it is a shell ejecting 8mm, so you actually get to load what look like real bullets into absolutely ginormous mags, and you get to load this thing and cock it and send those shells flying just like the real thing. This thing weighs about 10 kilos, so it is a real workout, not the kind of thing that you want to be running around with all day, and it's almost as tall as me. If you guys have made it this far, thank you so much for supporting me, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this look at my entire airsoft collection. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments down below. Feel free to have a look at some of the other videos on my channel, and I hope I'm going to see you in the future. Take care.